The Reverend Jesse Jackson.
He did not bring us this far to leave us now. Go on ahead. Go on ahead. Never turn back. Our time has come.
The civil rights icon died early this morning at the age of 84. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us here at 4 o'clock. I'm Marion Brooks.
And I'm Stephen Holt. It's great to be with you this afternoon. Today, the city of Chicago and really the entire nation are reflecting on the journey of Reverend Jesse Jackson.
From his protest beginnings in college to working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to twice running for president, Reverend Jackson's life has impacted generations.
Our political reporter Marianne Ahern takes a look back at some of the many highlights.
Few ever roared from a pulpit or podium like Jesse Louis Jackson.
I have determined that I will be what I want to be. Fly a plane, build a bridge, run for Congress, run for president.
Born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1941, Jackson was raised in the deep poverty of the segregated South. A high school athlete, he won a football scholarship to the University of Illinois, but headed home after only a year. He left, but in 1966, at the age of 25, he returned to study at Chicago Theological Seminary. He was young, ambitious, and increasingly controversial.
I am somebody.
Chicago became his base, his presence and power growing as a civil rights leader and as a politician.
From slave ship to championship, our time has come. From our house to White House, our time has come.
In 1984, Jackson unsuccessfully sought the Democratic presidential nomination. He ran again in 1988 and won 11 primaries before bowing out. He earned a primetime slot at the party's national convention and urged the nation to dream.
When my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you, and you can make it.
Jackson was the most prominent and controversial civil rights leader of his generation. He led crusades fighting black-on-black crime, urged students to excel academically, and implored generations to fight the growing dangers of illegal drugs.
Down with dope, up with hope.
Still, controversy was an early and constant companion. He was in Memphis in 1968 when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The morning after, Jackson appeared on television in a shirt he said was covered in King's blood, raising questions, according to author Barbara Reynolds.
No one knows where he got the blood because he didn't come near Dr. King.
There was blood on me because he was bleeding profusely. He had been shot in the neck.
What we have seen is the invention of a Negro leader or a black leader.
First, Operation Breadbasket, then Operation Push became his platform. He helped oust Mayor Richard J. Daley and his allies from the 1972 Democratic National Convention. He battled Mayor Jane Byrne over minority participation over what was to become Chicago Fest. Chicago was his home, but the world was his stage. Fighting apartheid in South Africa, supporting Palestinian rights, and in 1984, securing the release of a downed American pilot in Syrian-held territory in Lebanon. The remarkable life of Jesse Louis Jackson began as the son of an unwed teenage mother with little prospects for a life of achievements, but blessed with intellect and a gift of oratory.
I can be what I want to be because there's a me that makes me me.
And the ability to seize the moment in both controversy and conviction. Jackson's name will long be remembered, and in a statement that may best sum up his life's journey. The Reverend Jesse Jackson said this: "Those of us who dare to be change agents, who lead by molding opinion and not following opinion polls, always rub the edges of our society."
What a life, what a legacy. No question, he will not be forgotten. Jackson's son, Jesse Jr., has a radio talk show, and he didn't miss it today, despite his father's death.
And incredible, he shared some of those final moments with his dad today, hearing his last breath.
And about 12:35 this morning, I heard a gasp, and it was a deep and a long gasp. So I went over to check on him, and I didn't sense any movement, and I said, "Something's wrong." I then went over to wake up my mother, and I said, Mom, wake up. Something's not right here. She looked at him very carefully, and she said, it's happened. Dad's gone. And we all began crying and praying and trying to hold the pieces of our family together, and everyone was breaking down, and I couldn't believe it. And then it begins to set in that Jesse Jackson belongs to the ages.
Remarkable that he was composed enough to share that, and so grateful that those moments, so personal.
Marianne Ahern joining us now, of course, has been speaking to people close to Reverend Jackson all day today.
He has. And you know, you've certainly covered Jackson over the years. Those Saturday Operation Push meetings, a lot of people liken them to church. Reporters didn't want to miss anything because they knew that news was going to be made there.
Right. It was a must. It was a must go to. Absolutely. We knew that whether it was an upcoming election, Reverend Jackson was going to weigh in no matter the topic. You might say it was the laboratory for activism. Whatever that issue might be, the war in Iraq, an opening on the Supreme Court, a concern over clean water in Flint, Michigan. Operation Push was where you would get Reverend Jackson's take, and the elected leaders knew he was going to hold them accountable.
You talked about Jane Byrne in that story a little bit earlier, all those roles in Chicago politics. Big role on the national stage as well. I mean, Reverend Jackson had a tremendous impact on how the Democratic Party nominates its candidates. Could you talk a little bit more about that, how he was able to make that change?
One of his legacies for sure will be this. His presidential campaigns, they were groundbreaking. In 1984, Jackson received 18% of the vote, finishing third. In 1988, he received even more votes, 29%. He forced the Democratic Party to change how the nominee was chosen and reduce the power of those winner-take-all primaries. We spoke today to Del Marie Cobb. She had been his national press secretary for that 1988 campaign.
One of the major rules that he changed was that instead of delegates going all to one person in a state, it then became proportionality. So each candidate got a proportion of their delegates based on the vote. And that made the way for Barack Obama to become the president in 2008.
He was the bridge from Martin Luther King to Barack Obama.
Absolutely. There would be no Barack Obama had there not been a Jesse Jackson, because Jesse Jackson knew how to use his leverage in strategic ways.
Finally, if you ever heard Reverend Jackson speak, it wasn't just those one-liners, and they did. You heard them, of course. But what caught your attention also was he knew how to speak quietly. He would make the crowd really listen to him by the way that he spoke. And that is really one of those moments I will remember for sure.
Certainly a gifted orator, and what an impact in so many areas of life. He knew, like Del Marie said, he knew how to use his influence. He really understood it very well. Key strategist. Thank you, Marianne.
And you've had a front row seat for a lot of that. So
yes, amazing.
For sharing that with us.
Thanks, Marianne. Well, of course, there are countless of tributes out there from political figures. They're just pouring in right now. Here's a few of the notables. Former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama said in part, Michelle got her first glimpse of political organizing at the Jackson's kitchen table when she was a teenager. This is an aside. This is not part of the quote. She was best friends with Santita Jackson, Jesse Jackson's daughter. And in his 2 historic runs for president, the quote goes on to say, he laid the foundation for my own campaign to the highest office of the land.
Governor J.B. Pritzker of the state of Illinois ordered flags at half staff and tweeted, he broke down barriers, inspired generations, and kept hope alive. Our state, nation, and world are better due to his years of service.
And President Donald Trump posted in part, he was a good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts. He was very gregarious and someone who truly loved people.
So we've talked about the national stage. Back here at home in Chicago, Chicago's 6th Ward Alderman, William Hall, is remembering Reverend Jesse Jackson not just as a civil rights icon, but also as a mentor who inspired his career in public service.
Yeah, in an emotional interview, Hall says the world feels different today. He talked to Christian today. But Reverend Jackson's mission to serve the least and the left out must continue. Christian, I know he was very emotional. Christian joins us now with more on his powerful reflections. You could tell he was quite emotional.
Yeah, he was emotional on the morning show this morning, very emotional with us. He worked as a national field director and also Reverend Jackson's personal assistant as well. And he was like a second father to him. And so he worked between 2007 and 2008, and he helped put Alderman Hall on his current path.
He saw in me what I didn't see in myself at that time. And traveling the world with him wasn't about, the celebrity of him. It was to serve him. And from the time he opened his eyes, which, depending on the time zone, was 2 a.m, man. And from the time he woke up to the time he, put his head back on that pillow, my priority is to make sure that he had everything he needed to be the best at serving people.
Wow. Wow.
You hear a lot about that relationship, the way that he really touched people, not just in public service, but from people in the highest halls of power to people that were on the streets of Chicago. That relationship he had with the alderman, it sounds like there was kind of this mutual respect for each other. Did you pick that up in the interview?
Very much so. I mean, he said this was his second father, and he listened to him. And he initially offered him a job. He turned it down because the money wasn't very good.
He turned it down?
He turned down the job. Then he offered it to him again with a little bit more money, but that allowed him to travel the world and be on this political path and to serve. And that's the thing. It's about serving the people, and that's the most important thing that you learn from him.
And he said one of the things I kind of seemed to pull away from him was he believed in him. He made him believe he could do this, and he went to him when he wanted to run.
Yeah, well, he didn't come from like the Young Democrats or any other sort of political machine. And he just went out there and did it. And he told him to go do it. And he said, what's the advice? And he said, first to love them, serve them, and everything else will take care of itself. And that's how Alderman Hall has been doing it since then. He feels like he's done a good job, and he wants to continue that as his role as alderman of the 6th Ward.
Part of his legacy, part of Reverend Jackson's legacy, for sure.
Part of the story.
Christian
Forrest, good to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back with more on Reverend Jesse Jackson and the impact that he had and has had on young people.
Back to our coverage of the death of Reverend Jesse Jackson, passed away early this morning here in Chicago. Jackson had a way of encouraging young people, encouraging them to dream big and to chase excellence.
Regina Waldrop is here now. And Regina, you spoke with some students today about his impact and his legacy.
Yeah, Marion, we went to St. Sabina, which is a Catholic school in the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood. So Reverend Jackson, not just somebody who is talked about today, the day of his passing, he is someone that is part of their lesson plan. So all year long, he is someone that they talk about. So I want you to listen what some students said about Reverend Jackson today.
Okay.
We was talking about how Jesse Jackson was an outstanding person and how he gave us the ability to be able to come to the school today and giving us the ability to have equal rights as other people, and his famous quote is, "Believe in yourself." And every day I come to school and believe in myself and strive for greatness.
He worked for those who didn't have a voice to make sure they had a voice.
Every school today in Chicago and this week should make their children do research on Reverend Jackson. We have the internet, we have Google. Look it up, study him, see what he did, how he began as a young person, and how he vowed to be a leader in the country and making a difference around the world. He brought home hostages.
So if Reverend Jackson is not being discussed in your school, Father Flager says, again, you have the internet, look it up. If not for anything else, have your students, have your children take a quiz at home. Yeah. For me, I woke up my 14-year-old this morning. I said, Reverend Jackson has passed. She said, oh, no. I said, you know who that is? And she said, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
You are her mom, however. So
right.
we know that you're going to get that message across. But one thing I think is really interesting, and people don't maybe know this, you know, we see a lot of the contributions that he's made on television and the videos from years past and everything, but he did a lot when the camera wasn't rolling as well, didn't he, Regina?
Well, there's that public persona that we all know so much, but there are also things in private. So my mother loved Reverend Jackson. A woman from the South came here, part of that great migration. She grew up listening to him on the radio. And so a few years ago, she became ill, and I was at Rainbow Push one weekend covering a story, and I told Reverend Jackson's PR person, I said, hey, you have a big fan in Barbara Waldrop. He says, oh, yeah, give me your number. We're going to go visit your mom. And I said, well, okay, let's see what happens. I get a text one day, we're on our way.
Wow.
To see Barbara Waldrop.
And he came.
And my mother was very ill. She had dementia. Mm-hmm. She was paralyzed. Mm-hmm. He came to see Barbara Waldrop.
Isn't that something?
What did that mean for you? That he, someone, such a big figure here in Chicago, globally, nationally,
I'm getting choked up here,
Stephen.
So, because I never tell anyone this story, but, again, you see that person on TV, that public persona. He didn't have to go out of his way for my mother, and he never said one thing about it. Mm-hmm. He never bragged about it. He never boasted about it. He just did it. Mm. He made her day.
Mm. Beautiful.
And he made her feel seen, important, you name it. Reverend Jackson did all this for Barbara Waldrop, and I can't thank him and his family enough.
Wow, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
It does speak to his character, and that's what we're talking about today. Yeah. Thank you, Regina.
A lot of memories being shared throughout the day today. And coming up at 4:30, we're going to have much more. We'll be right back after this.
We are giants with grasshopper complexes. Oh, yeah. We don't know how powerful we really are.
You to remember Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Tonight, there is a growing memorial outside of Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters in the Kenwood neighborhood.
NBC 5's Charlie Wojciechowski is live at 50th and South Drexel, where so many people have come out today to pay their respects. Charlie?
Well, Steph and Marion, we have seen a lot of people turn out here. Chicago police have erected a barricade all the way around the building, protecting the building for any crowds that might come later on. But everyone we've seen here has come with love and respect for the Reverend Jackson, a lot of them bringing private cards and messages to be put on that memorial, and a lot of them talking about the impact this organization has had on the community. This afternoon, bunting is going up over the door at the South Side headquarters of the Rainbow Push Coalition as neighbors and friends set flowers. Juanita Wade came to see Jesse Jackson almost 20 years ago when she was working through some legal problems.
I got the help I needed and more. It was amazing how he just didn't look down on me.
Stop the violence. Save the children.
Coming to Operation Push and later the Push Rainbow Coalition was a Saturday ritual for many in Chicago's Hyde Park and Kenwood communities. Mary Johnson lives across the street.
Served breakfast for the people and all that. Clothing, anything, everything. It was just a pillar to the community.
That pillar was Jesse Jackson Sr., speaking from the pulpit or working behind the scenes, organizing events focused on neighborhood safety and empowerment.
More guns does not make us safer. What makes us safer is economic opportunity.
And this building, which was originally the home of Operation Breadbasket, founded by Dr. Martin Luther King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was an oasis for many, including Hermine Hartman, founder of Indigo.
We've lost a giant. I've lost one of my dearest friends. We're thankful for his life, his giving, his living, his legacy.
Former Congressman Bobby Rush, who says Jackson saved his life back in his Black Panther days, says the time has come for the students of Jesse Jackson to carry on his teachings.
I don't know where to go because he is missing. And so we are seeking direction, and our leader is absent.
Now, part of that healing process will be funeral services for the Reverend Jackson. Those will be announced in the next couple of days, as will a celebration of life ceremony. The family says they have established a website to post more information about those events when that information becomes available. We are live at 50th and Drexel, right in front of Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters. Charlie Wojciechowski, NBC 5 News.
Okay. Charlie, Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So Reverend Jackson, of course, commanded media attention and for decades as a minister, as a politician, and a champion of civil rights.
Our coverage of the life and death of Jesse Jackson continues now with NBC Chicago's Chuck Gowdy, who has reported on the multifaceted Jackson for more than 4 decades. Chuck?
Marian, any journalist in Chicago for a minute or two has Jesse Jackson's stories. His coattails were long, with lots of people along the way trying to grab hold. And the shadow he cast was even longer, from a frame that stood 6 feet 3 inches and an arm span that made him an attractive college football recruit, first at U of I in 1959, then as starting quarterback at North Carolina A&T. In August 2014, the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, near St. Louis, were up for grabs after an unarmed teenager was shot and killed by police. Our news crew was in body armor and reporting from beneath gas masks as tensions escalated when the Reverend Jesse Jackson showed up unannounced to march with protesters. Jackson's appearance was his standard MO, strolling onto the scene, reducing the temperature for the moment, and trying to dial back hostilities, which he did for a time on these couple of days in Ferguson. Even though the tempers and the tension would strike again, at least when the Reverend Jackson put himself in the middle of things, there was a calming effect in those moments. Over the years, there were many disturbances, such as this one, where Jesse Jackson's presence alone changed behavior and the course of events. Many times he was more popular and powerful away from Chicago, arriving on the scene far from his hometown, that crowds considered his presence something special, deserving of their attention. In Chicago history, it may be noted that Jackson was conspicuously absent from the kinds of challenging moments that would draw him to out-of-town venues. And as the minister of the Christian word, the Reverend Jackson could rightly note that even the Bible says a prophet is treated with honor everywhere except his own hometown. Marian?
Thank you so much, Chuck. That's so fitting. I came from out of town when I came to this market. I couldn't believe Jesse Jackson. Oh, my goodness. And here it was like, oh, it's Reverend, you know, because people were so used to him. But
for granted,
everywhere else, I mean, he's big here, but he was monumental.
We forget that he actually lost his home state of Illinois in '84 and '88 when he ran for president.
There you go.
But his ability to dial down the temperature at those moments, interesting to see that in Ferguson and so many other chances.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate it.
Our coverage of the Reverend Jesse Jackson's life and legacy will continue after the break.
Yeah, we'll take a closer look at the impact he made on the international stage. We'll talk about that coming up next.
I am somebody. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. I am somebody.
We continue to remember Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away this morning. His legacy is well established in Chicago and even in the country, but many may forget the impact he's had internationally.
Let's take a closer look at that. Patrick Fazio in the newsroom for us with that part of the story. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Stephan and Marian. Yeah, Reverend Jackson will also be remembered for negotiating the release of hostages around the world. Over the decades, he's credited with helping to free hundreds of people taken captive, including U.S. service members.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
In 1999, Reverend Jesse Jackson helped free 3 U.S. soldiers taken hostage in Yugoslavia.
We can use moral authority to, in fact, intervene and within the law, pursuing human rights.
Reverend Jackson had traveled to meet with the president of Yugoslavia.
Good morning. I'm fine.
And eventually negotiated the release of the 3 U.S. soldiers taken captive during that country's war in Eastern Europe.
Thank Reverend Jesse Jackson, the clergy, for coming to help get us released.
A year later, Reverend Jackson received a White House honor for freeing those soldiers. President Clinton awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor.
It's hard to imagine how we could have come as far as we have without the creative power, the keen intellect, the loving heart, and the relentless passion of Jesse Louis Jackson.
President Reagan also honored Reverend Jackson in 1984 for negotiating the release of a U.S. Navy lieutenant held captive in Syria after his plane was shot down.
We have made contact with the State Department.
Over the decades, Reverend Jackson also negotiated the release of other Americans, including those held in Cuba. He's also credited with helping to free 700 women and children held after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990.
It's time for healing. It's time for hope.
Reverend Jackson joined Jewish leaders in 1999 to call for the release of 13 Jews held in an Iranian prison.
This is a community of faith, reaching out to our religious counterparts inside Iran, because we believe that civil society and religious organizations have a powerful role to play.
Reverend Jackson also joined Nelson Mandela to end apartheid in South Africa, motivated by the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when they worked together during the Civil Rights era.
The dream continues and the struggle continues, but every now and then we see flashes of hope. Inclusion leads to growth, and when there is growth, everybody wins.
And another part of his international legacy, Reverend Jackson served as a special envoy of President Clinton to promote democracy in Africa. Back to you.
When you put it all together like that, we do kind of forget some of his international impact. Patrick, thank you for bringing us that part of the story. We've got more to come on the death of Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Coming up after the break, we're going to join Carol Marine to help break down his political legacy. Don't go away. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died today, a civil rights icon, but also trailblazer right here in Chicago.
Joining us now to add some perspective, our political analyst and longtime NBC5 political reporter, Carol Marine, an anchor as well. She's done it all. You covered Reverend Jackson's presidential campaign in '84 and '88. What was your impressions of covering him as a candidate, a presidential candidate?
You know, in '83, we were in Quitman County, Mississippi. And that is not a place that it could be friendly to Jesse Jackson, but quite unfriendly, too. I remember traveling with his sons and him and watching Jonathan and Jesse Jr. look out for anyone who might shoot. You know, I mean, the fear, the risk that their father was taking in mounting that campaign, I don't think we can ever underestimate. And yet he was electric, magnetic. There's something about Jesse Jackson. If you say no, he says yes. Your no doesn't work for him. And so he launched that bid, did shockingly well, and then rolled into '88. And '88 was someplace where in 13 different state primaries and caucuses, he won. He won in Michigan among white farmers. You know, he won in Ohio among, Iowa factory workers.
What was it, do you think? How did he reach people?
They were disenfranchised. They were disillusioned. They were all of the things that Jesse Jackson identified with, people who were unheard, unhoused, unhelped, who had no hope. And that's where he struck the greatest, strongest, I think, most powerful chord.
A candidate who's really a long shot in that sense, who was able to kind of find that leverage, find that strategy, really connect and resonate with people. We heard that clip from Del Marie Cobb earlier, who said, had it not been for Reverend Jackson, we would not have seen
Barack
Obama.
Obama.
Like Barack Obama.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I do agree with it because Jesse Jackson set the table in many ways for Barack Obama. And if Barack Obama said, as he said more than once, how improbable his quest was, compared to Jesse Jackson's, Jackson's was impossible, and yet he defied the odds, and he defied the people who told him, no, can't be done, shouldn't be done. And even when he stumbled, and there were some serious stumbles along the way, he would say, God isn't finished with me yet, and move on. He was undeterred.
I want to talk a little bit about his legacy. Today, we're talking a lot about his legacy. Some people remember and some don't. For African-American candidates, even aside from Barack Obama, because there are many on many levels that he touched, what would you say his legacy is for them?
He gave them the hope to do things that they were being told they probably couldn't do, or support they couldn't have. Remember, Jesse Jackson came to Chicago and formed Operation Breadbasket before there was Push. There was Mayor Richard J. Daley then. Daley was not a fan of Jesse Jackson's, nor was Jackson a fan of the mayor's. This was an even more segregated city than it even still is to this day. So the challenges were greater, the partitions on race and the economy of people more profound. So Jackson, I really think, dropped the seeds and grew the plants that ended up being really the political trees that have launched so many candidates.
Including his own sons.
Including his own sons.
Yeah.
His own family. We think of some of the issues that he was trying to tackle back in the 60s and the 70s, 80s, a lot of the issues we're facing today. Is there this generational message, this generational legacy that he leaves behind that is relevant today just as it was 20, 30 years ago?
Well, I saw the piece with Mike Flager, and his Catholic school and those kids who were studying. Regina's piece was so touching to me. The fact is that, like Martin Luther King, he does live. His words live. I saw a YouTube video yesterday, and it was Jesse Jackson reading, "I do not like green
From
eggs."
Saturday Night Live.
I do not like green eggs and ham. And I mean, I was mesmerized by it because, in fact, he can, with great authority, tell you not to eat green eggs and ham, Sam, I am.
And you're listening.
And you are listening. You are listening.
One other quick question I wanted to ask you as a journalist of many decades who's covered him and the city of Chicago. What impression did he leave with you as a leader?
He was complex. I mean, he was a very complex man, and we can't oversimplify that. There were many dimensions to him. He could be a theologian. He could be a hard case politician. You can't reduce someone of that size to a small kind of description. And that, I think, is really important because he had all the possibilities. He grew up with all the impossibilities. Single, unwed mother, poverty, being told no. Not everybody in black leadership loved Jesse Jackson. We can't forget that. I mean, there were challenges. He was young and bold, and some of the older leaders not so nuts about him. And now, look, he is one of the oldest, most iconic leaders that we have seen developed in this country.
One thing you have to say about him, he showed up.
He
Consistently showed up. Even when he was ill, he continued to show up.
County jail, Congress, I don't care where, he was
showed
there.
up. That's right. Carol, thank you for your perspective.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Rooms. Marion?
Yes, his impact was felt far and wide, clearly. Thank you for bringing us that part of the story, Rose. We appreciate it. And that is going to round out our 4 o'clock broadcast here as we will continue, I know, to honor the life and legacy of Reverend Jackson. We'll send it to you guys for the 5.
Absolutely, Marion. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Marion. Straight ahead on our news at 5 o'clock, continuing coverage of the passing of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, how he's being remembered right here in Chicago. Also, in a moment, we're going to share part of an interview we just did with his son, Jesse Jackson Jr., who said he was with his father this morning, the moment he died. On the NBC 5 News at 5, we honor the life and the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died early this morning at the age of 84. Thanks so much for joining us at 5 o'clock. I'm Stephen Holt.
And I'm Allison Rosati. We have extended coverage for you on the Reverend Jackson's impact here in Chicago, across the country, and around the world. All day, people have been stopping by his family's home in the Jackson Park Highlands neighborhood, leaving flowers and balloons, honoring his impact here in the city and across the world. The Jackson family says the Reverend died peacefully, surrounded by his family.
A statement from his family reads in part, "We shared him with the world, and in return, the world became part of our extended family. His unwavering belief in justice, equality, and love uplifted millions, and we ask you to honor his memory by continuing the fight for the values he lived by." Reverend Jackson, of course, helped propel the civil rights movement in this nation and twice ran for president.
He also founded the Rainbow Push Coalition that's based right here in Chicago to fight for social change. His impact has been felt, again, across the country and around the world. Our political reporter, Marian Ahern, joining us now with a look back at Jackson's legacy.
Few ever roared from a pulpit or podium like Jesse Louis Jackson.
I have determined that I will be what I want to be. Fly a plane, build a bridge, run for Congress, run for president.
Born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1941, Jackson was raised in the deep poverty of the segregated South. A high school athlete, he won a football scholarship to the University of Illinois, but headed home after only a year. He left, but in 1966, at the age of 25, he returned to study at Chicago Theological Seminary. He was young, ambitious, and increasingly controversial.
I am somebody.
Chicago became his base, his presence and power growing as a civil rights leader and as a politician.
From slave ship to championship, our time has come. From our house to White House, our time has come.
In 1984, Jackson unsuccessfully sought the Democratic presidential nomination. He ran again in 1988 and won 11 primaries before bowing out. He earned a primetime slot at the party's national convention and urged the nation to dream.
When my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you, and you can make it.
Jackson was the most prominent and controversial civil rights leader of his generation. He led crusades fighting black-on-black crime, urged students to excel academically, and implored generations to fight the growing dangers of illegal drugs. Still, controversy was an early and constant companion. He was in Memphis in 1968 when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The morning after, Jackson appeared on television in a shirt he said was covered in King's blood, raising questions, according to author Barbara Reynolds.
No one knows where he got the blood because he didn't come near Dr. King.
There was blood on me because he was bleeding profusely. He had been shot in the neck.
What we have seen is the invention of a Negro leader or a black leader.
First, Operation Breadbasket, then Operation Push became his platform. He helped oust Mayor Richard J. Daley and his allies from the 1972 Democratic National Convention. He battled Mayor Jane Byrne over minority participation over what was to become Chicago Fest. Chicago was his home, but the world was his stage. Fighting apartheid in South Africa, supporting Palestinian rights, and in 1984, securing the release of a downed American pilot in Syrian-held territory in Lebanon. Jackson married his wife Jacqueline Brown in 1962, and she remained in the shadows for the majority of his political career. Together, they had 5 children. Jesse Jackson Jr. carried his father's name and political ambition and was elected to Congress in 1995. But in 2013, he and his wife Sandy Jackson pled guilty to federal charges of misusing $750,000 in campaign funds. It was an anguishing family moment in the autumn of Reverend Jackson's career.
His will to public service continues. He's down, but he'll get back up again.
In November 2017, Jackson announced he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He had noticed the symptoms 3 years prior. While the disease often leaves some with impaired coordination, that diagnosis did not stop Jackson's advocacy. Whether it was calling for police reform after George Floyd's murder or pushing for voting rights, even willing to be arrested in the summer of 2021, Jackson demanded an end to the effort to restrict voting access.
Happy birthday.
On Jackson's 83rd birthday, October 8th, 2024, he was surrounded by family, friends, and politicos at Mayor Brandon Johnson's City Hall office. While Jackson did not speak publicly, his son, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, noted the importance of giving flowers to great men and great women while they can still smell them. In November 2025, when Reverend Jackson was hospitalized, his family revealed a new diagnosis. He had progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. It's a neurodegenerative disease more serious than Parkinson's. The remarkable life of Jesse Louis Jackson began as the son of an unwed teenage mother with little prospects for a life of achievements, but blessed with intellect and a gift of oratory.
I can be what I want to be because there's a me that makes me me.
And the ability to seize the moment in both controversy and conviction. Jackson's name will long be remembered. And in a statement that may best sum up his life's journey, the Reverend Jesse Jackson said this: "Those of us who dare to be change agents, who lead by molding opinion and not following opinion polls, always rob the edges of our society."
Marianne Ahern with a look back there. And of course, Jesse Jackson remembered today as a civil rights icon. But important to remember, through all this, he was a husband and a very proud father.
A very proud father, and just spoke moments ago with his son. I spoke with Jesse Jackson Jr. about what it was like in these final hours, and he spoke from the heart in just a few moments ago in a Zoom call.
It was very, very painful. In fact, I didn't want to leave the funeral home at 3 o'clock this morning, in small measure because my father would not have wanted to be alone. I know that about him, that he needs community, that he needed people, and that he got great energy from being around people. The great Jesse Jackson is no more, and it was very, very painful, but I now empathize with millions of Americans whose parents are aging and going through the exact same thing, and it's something that I want to address if I'm ever in a position to do so.
In fact, we were just with Jesse Jackson Jr. yesterday when he participated in a debate as he looks for a political comeback.
And Jesse Jackson's such a huge part, not only of the city of Chicago, nationally and globally. He will be remembered so fondly, too, for always showing up, always being there and championing those who didn't have a voice.
Absolutely. You know, we knew him here in Chicago, but he was a world voice. And I think we will see in the weeks ahead when his funeral here in Chicago will be much like a state funeral, that we will likely to see former presidents be here, as well as perhaps world leaders who interacted with Jesse Jackson over the years.
He had so many powerful messages, too. Keep hope alive, the one that I know always rings in my heart when I think of him.
I've covered him for more than 40 years as a reporter in Atlanta and then here in Chicago, and those speeches, you know, you couldn't have walked away without taking something. You know, the dream was a lie, all of that. And also his ability to make you listen in a quiet way to what he had to say.
Effective communicator, but we saw he did a lot of things too, here in Chicago and around the world.
Right. He demanded the attention of elected leaders, but he also got results.
Yeah.
He sure did. All right, Marianne Ahern, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the look back. While Jesse Jackson's cause of death is still not confirmed at this moment, he was battling that rare neurological disorder called progressive supranuclear palsy, also known as PSP.
NBC5's Courtney Sis shares more about this disorder and how Jesse Jackson battled through it.
84-year-old civil rights leader Jesse Jackson remained a symbol of strength throughout his life, even in the past decade. He first revealed he had Parkinson's disease in 2017, something he had been undergoing treatment for since 2015. But last year, Rainbow Push said Jackson had been diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP.
And what makes PSP different than Parkinson's disease is it usually doesn't respond to the Parkinson's medications.
Dr. Amy Brown is a national leader in PSP and a neurology professor at Vanderbilt University.
Eventually will also cause difficulty even moving your eyes horizontally, which really impacts patients. That light sensitivity really impacts patients, that difficulty swallowing, and an ability to not walk. So those symptoms progress a lot quicker.
So far, there's no cure, but even so, the diagnosis didn't stop Jackson. He continued to push for civil rights, attending marches and fighting for criminal justice reform after the death of George Floyd, to making an appearance at the Democratic National Convention in summer 2024. And while he didn't speak, his presence was enough to captivate an entire arena and move an audience to tears. One of the last public appearances he attended was his 83rd birthday celebration in October 2024, where he accepted an award at the mayor's office. He was unable to attend his 84th this past October, and in November was hospitalized. But Jackson's resolve never wavered. He leaves behind a legacy defined not by illness, but by impact. Courtney Sisk, NBC5 News.
An incredible life.
Absolutely. Still ahead for us at 5, another unique viewpoint on Reverend Jackson's life. We're going to talk to former NBC5 reporter and anchor Art Norman, who knew Reverend Jackson for decades.
He would be walking a picket line, serving the homeless meals on weekends, turkeys, Christmas toys. That's what he did. And he wanted to do that, and he was still in college.
Our Marion Brooks sits down with Art Norman to talk about Jackson's legacy, and we'll bring that to you next. Then
is a freedom train coming. But you got to register to ride. Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Right on.
we're continuing our coverage, remembering the Reverend Jesse Jackson tonight.
And this afternoon, our Marion Brooks got a chance to sit down with former NBC5 anchor and reporter Art Norman, whose relationship with Jackson actually goes back to his college days.
So what did Reverend mean to you?
Reverend was the vehicle of change. I think of Reverend fondly if I go all the way back to my college days. When I was in college at Johnson C. Smith University, every Saturday I would get in a car and drive 33 miles north to A&T University, where Jesse was playing football. He was an all-American quarterback at A&T. Great passer. He could throw us a touchdown 60 yards. Unbelievable. He would go out on weekends and raise money to get books for kids who didn't have money, because books are expensive in college. And you got to go about $200-300 just for books. And Jesse would go out as the president of the student body at A&T University, in addition to being the quarterback. And in addition to walking picket lines, he made sure freshmen coming into the school had books if they came from poor neighborhoods. And so that's one of the things I liked when I came from Harlem to Johnson C. Smith. There wasn't much help for me. I was a waiter, and I waited tables and everything like that, but I got over. But Jesse made it easy for young people coming into HBCUs to get money to buy books. But he would be walking a picket line, serving the homeless meals on weekends, turkeys, Christmas toys. That's what he did. And he wanted to do that, and he was still in college. Like, wow. The thing that I loved about Jesse, he picked me to be his co-host on the radio. The radio show was called Keep Hope Alive. And on Sunday mornings, from 5 until 9 o'clock in the morning, me and Jesse on the radio, taking calls from all over the country. I mean, all the presidential candidates called in and talked to Bernie Sanders. Was funny. He was on the radio talking to Jesse and me, and we were sitting there talking and laughing.
What did Reverend mean to journalists?
Well, it solidified jobs. For example, if like when Vernon Jarrett, the founder of NABJ, they called him a knee-jerk journalist. The Sun-Times did that. That's after he worked in the Sun-Times for over 30 years. They called him a knee-jerk journalist. And we were upset about it. Then they didn't renew his contract. Put him out the pasture. And I got together with John Johnson, Dick Gregory, a guy named George O'Hare, and a lot of black journalists, Warner Saunders, and all of us. We all got together. We're going to walk with picket signs in front of the Sun-Times to put Jesse. That was all Jesse's idea. He said, "Get the picket signs, Norman. Get the picket signs. Get everybody that you see on TV. Have them walk with the picket signs in front of the Sun-Times building." I said, "You think you have a job, Reverend?" He said, "You better have a job." So he was kind of funny, but he was very, very truthful. So we did that, and we saved Vernon Jarrett's job. They hired him back. Jesse loved journalism. He loved to respect journalists. And he wanted to make sure that we had contracts, wanted to make sure there was a way to renegotiate your contract.
And I know Jesse Jackson was always here on election night and always willing to give his thoughts on what was happening. Marion Brooks now in studio, obviously, with us. Thank you for that interview with Art. I could listen to him tell stories all day. I know. You covered Reverend Jackson over the years. Your thoughts tonight?
I have to say, when you're in Chicago, Reverend Jackson is big, but I grew up in Oregon, went to school in Georgia, and Reverend Jackson was huge. I can't even express to you. I would tell people in my hometown, oh yeah, I see Reverend Jackson all the time in Chicago, and they're like, you do? So I think that's one of the things maybe people here don't appreciate, is just how impactful he was all around the world. And he's beloved here, of course, and all the work he did here, and so much without being recognized in public. But he was just one of those truly unique individuals who made an impact all over. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget having an opportunity to really get to know him. That's a blessing.
And his reason for championing for others. I was 1987, Buffalo, New York. First time I met Reverend Jackson was at a nurses' strike, and he showed up to help them negotiate with the hospital. Could not have been more incredible.
So you know what I mean,
yes.
right? And he showed up so often. That's one of the things about him. He showed up and made a difference every time.
From newsrooms to hospitals to internationals. He just finger on the pulse of everything, it seemed.
He did. Yeah, he did.
Marion Brooks, we appreciate it. Thank you.
We will miss him.
We will miss him.
We will miss him.
It's good to see Art Norman, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.